Hi, this is Danielle DiMartino Booth, and I am the founder, CEO, and chief strategist of QI Research. I'd like to thank you for taking a few minutes to watch this short segment and hear my latest thoughts on the markets and the economy, and of course, monetary policy here in the United States. Thank you for your feedback. Please, if you don't already follow me on YouTube, please do so and invite your friends to come and watch as well. Take care. Bye-bye.
So for the last couple of years, the financial media has joined the mainstream media in trying to convince the American public that they're doing great. Now, initially, the approach was just like from these media outlets like the New Yorker, Salon, and the New York Times, throw the Washington Post in there, too. It was like, treat you like you are dumb, like you are so dumb you don't know how great this economy is. By the way, the White House did that a lot as well. Now I think there's a little bit more nuance, although still curious interpretations to developments, right? And when they're not embellishing data, the media just ignores the headline developments and they find nuggets within. So let's talk about yesterday. The GDP number came in. By the way, before I even get to that, I just want to kind of show you what I mean here. So this is consumer confidence. Consumer confidence surges, and this is, by the way, out of Barron's. Economic sentiment improves ahead of the election. American mood perks up. Well, this is the surge. I don't know that you really consider that a surge. We were higher in earlier this year, 2023, 2021, and look where we were even before President Biden came into office. So we're not surging, right? And so the same thing sort of yesterday with the GDP number. Again, it came in below consensus. Now, I just want you to think about this. Honestly, if Donald Trump were president, the headlines would be so gloomy. GDP number 2.8, below consensus, another bad number. But instead, everyone kind of found a way to find some good stuff, right? Single out the good things, not on the headline. So that's fine. You can do that. But still, no one mentioned government spending, which was really a big, big component of all of this. Now, the media has been working overtime with a whole lot of negative stories in the meantime about a potential Trump presidency, ignoring the fact that Americans are already to bring back jobs to this country when it comes to this stuff like tariffs, right? And if it means higher prices for cheap plastic stuff that you get in Walmart, so be it. But the fact is, many companies will have to eat those costs, along with Chinese exporters. And so I'm not sure all of this negative media browbeating, it just really, really is tough. And for the most part, what they've been doing is over and over again calling most Americans stupid, not realizing how great things have been. And I think it's only exacerbated the situation. Now, this is the most recent poll out of Gallup. This really tells you how Americans feel. Forget about the media telling you how to feel. Only 25% of U.S. adults say that the current economic conditions are excellent or good. Now, those 25% happen to own real estate. They happen to be in the stock market. They've actually gotten $1 trillion, right, out of all of these high interest rates, while all you got was a higher credit card bill. So as you can see, this is the way it is. As it stands right now, going into the election, only 26% of Americans say that we're heading in the right direction, that they're satisfied. And by the way, less than 50% of Democrats even feel that way. So it's sort of universal. I want to bring a QI Research CEO and Chief Strategist Danielle DiMartino Booth in. Listen, I know the media, especially television media, we only have time for sound bites, but it feels like the glorification of headlines or cherry-picking data. It means that we never truly understand or articulate the pain that I think the majority of American households are dealing with right now, Danielle.
Charles, first of all, thank you for having me on, and happy Halloween. And I couldn't agree with you more. We had the biggest seasonal adjustment for ADP data in September. This was followed by the biggest seasonal adjustment for ADP data, big government job contractor, in October. People keep on looking past these things. Our friends at Macro Edge, they've documented more than 105,000 job cuts announced just in the month of October. International Paper, Kraken, Dropbox, those are three big names that have announced more layoffs today. Americans are not imagining that these things are happening on the ground in their lives, and yet the media keeps trying to convince them into this election that everything's going to be just fine.
And now here's the weird thing about all of that, right? Consumer spending, we saw the consumer spending numbers this morning, running at an annualized rate of 3.8%. Income, taking out those transfer payments, at 1.1%. That's a huge gulf. We know that's not sustainable. On top of that, we learned earlier this week that a record number of Americans plan to visit a foreign country next year. I look at this, I think it's depression. I don't see it as a sign of strength. I see it as a sign, I don't believe in the future. I'm going to go out and spend my check and have fun today. How do you see this data? Because it is confusing.
It's very confusing, Charles, and there's a lot of nihilism. There are a lot of people out there saying, you know what, the government is in the great habit, as far as I'm concerned, of excusing my debts. So I'm just going to run this up and write it off. And that's becoming more and more the American way. But that's not really what our founding fathers envisioned. You would agree, I think. So, you know, a lot of Americans have taken their $1 trillion well-to-do and spent that overseas. But a lot of Americans have also gotten up to their eyeballs in debt in order to support spending and make themselves feel better, because they're being told that the American economy is something that it's not, when we need the private sector to be the area that stands up and supports this nation's economy.
Yeah, you know, I mean, and also the days of, you know, waiting, pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, saving money for something like buying a house. There's sort of this impatience. There's this sort of like it won't ever happen, so why even try to deal with it? Why sacrifice? I do understand the notion that maybe you believe the dollar will be worth less tomorrow than it is today. I want to get to the Fed, or the conundrum the Fed might be in. So it didn't get a lot of press, but this morning the Chicago Business Barometer, it collapsed. I mean, it absolutely collapsed. This is a huge move down, much lower than what the street anticipated. The flip side of that, though, is the core PCE number was higher. How does the Fed interpret all of this data that's coming at them?
I think the Fed has to be very adult-like here and look through this, because the core PCE is being driven by factors that Fed policy cannot affect, Charles, and yet Fed policy can indeed make the job backdrop even worse. As bad as that Chicago headline number was, the employment index fell to 39.0. That's when 50 separates expansion and contraction. Charles, the Midwest is suffering, the entire country is suffering, and the Fed's going to have to look through, again, prices they cannot control.
The wealth effect, we know, is critical to all of this. I think it's holding this economy together. What happens if home prices start to come down and the stock market having a rocky week? What if there's a market correction? And inevitably, there will be.
Inevitably, with a 32% run-up to this current election, there will at some point be a correction. And then that 26% of Americans you mentioned who are supporting spending and feel like the U.S. economy is expanding, they'll stop spending as well, Charles.
Yeah, it's a wild one. Danielle, thank you very much. I hope you're around in the next week or so. We're gonna call you a couple times.
I'll be there for Fed Day.
All right, we'll see you then.